Hey guys, Michael here with Gaming for Immersion, and I had a weird kind of a dream, sort of. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I immediately started thinking about what are the most popular factions in Warhammer 3. Yes, this is the kind of thing that I think about in the middle of the night. And it got me to wondering if there has been any type of a scientific study with this data. So I just rolled out of bed and I typed into Google here what are Warhammer 3's most popular factions. And I found this little nugget from actually only a couple of weeks ago. This is the top 20 most played factions in Warhammer 3, and it's on the Creative Assembly forum here. So I thought, well, maybe there's some value to this. So first of all, I want to give a little bit of credit here to Kane Incarnate 6730. They're the one who triggered this entire discussion here, and as you can see, it's a long back and forth discussion. I'm going to focus on the beginning of it because, quite frankly, after this bit right here, it devolves into a conversation about the value of using AI tools for an analysis like this, which we could very easily go down a rabbit hole in terms of whether or not there's much value or how much value there is in using AR for research like this. So I'm not even going to get started on that, other than just to say I do think that there is value in using AI tools as long as you understand what their current limitations are. But having said that, I read through this list, and to me, it strikes me as a very believable list. And so I started looking through these. I had absolutely no doubt at all what number one was going to be. For example, this is what immediately makes me think there's value in this exercise that this person has done. I'm not surprised to see number two there as well. In fact, most of these top 10 or so, in fact, quite frankly, the entire list, to me, rings pretty true. So I think it's probably, for purposes of discussion anyway, a pretty valuable list. It's not my own personal list, though, and I knew that there would be some deviations between what would be popular versus what my own beliefs are. And that's kind of what I wanted to make a video about here. So I actually want to make another video, actually probably a couple more videos, because I've got some other ideas about this where I want to go in some different directions about the most popular factions and the best factions, the factions that I think are actually the ones that people are neglecting, that provide really good campaigns, but I suspect that people just don't gravitate towards them, either because of theme or because they just don't hear that much about them or whatever. So there's a couple of other videos that I have sort of in the back of my mind that I plan to make here, but for purposes of this one, I wanted to talk about this, and I'd like to basically say, since we've got this right here, which is an AI derived list, with a little bit of discussion here about how exactly he's done it. And again, I think that there is some value to it, but I thought what we should do, because I'm pretty sure at this point my channel is absolutely the largest Warhammer Total War channel on YouTube. All right, maybe not, but anyway, we do have a pretty decent sized community at this point, and there's a lot of I know a lot of you who are familiar enough with the game, got a lot of experience with the game. I just think it would be interesting to do our own sort of semi-scientific study of what our community considers to be their favorite factions, the best factions to play, anything related to this particular topic. But let's go ahead and talk about this list a little bit. So what the first thing that obviously jumps out at me, again, like I said, I'm not at all surprised by Reichland being number one, probably has been ever since basically probably since Warhammer 1. But the thing that kind of strikes me as, if you look at the top 5 here, Reichland, this is obviously Karl Franz, you got Elspeth, you've got Malachi, you've got Grand Cathay, Mal Ying, and you've got Kislev. Top 5 there. And what's common about 4 of the 5 of them? Humans. What is it in a world where there's so much diversity of races. There's so many interesting mechanics out there amongst the different races. There's so many different play styles that you would think would appeal to a wide range of different people. What is it that makes people gravitate towards the humans? It's just, I don't know the answer. I'm just kind of, wondering out loud what it is. So yeah, and here the interesting thing about it is, of course, these are not the easiest campaigns. They're not the most powerful campaigns. In fact, in my experience, I would say Elspeth is pretty good at this point. I mean, they're all fun. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to suggest otherwise, and obviously you shouldn't automatically think that because a faction is easy that they would be popular. But it is kind of interesting. I do think CA has done a tremendous disservice to people by making Karl Franz and Tsarina Katarine, by listing them as recommended starting campaigns, because they really shouldn't be. They're not particularly easy. Their mechanics are fine. I've grown to quite like Karl Franz because of the fascinating Let's Play campaign that I've got running on the channel. But he's not what I would call one of the stronger legendary lords, and he's quite frankly in such a difficult starting position with being surrounded by chaos. I can understand why that's appealing to a lot of people, but I don't feel like it was a great idea for CA to recommend this as a starting campaign for players. To me, never mind. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. I was going to say, to me, what the best starting faction is. Maybe I'll do that as a different video, or the best factions maybe that I would recommend as the best ones to really cut your teeth on this game. But it definitely wouldn't be Karl Franz. Anyway, but moving on down, after we get through the section with the humans, we see plus Malachi. So okay, again, this is another one. Malachi is a fun campaign, and he's got obviously really interesting mechanics that were introduced in Thrones of Decay. But his is absolutely not an easy campaign. Again, he is surrounded by some pretty tough enemies, and he's not in a great place to to really. He doesn't have an easy path of expansion. Let me just put it that way. Again, love the campaign. I think it's a fascinating campaign. I find it very interesting that he's so popular. But again, for players who aren't experts, kind of not really a campaign I would recommend. All right, so moving on down here for 6 through 10, we've got the Exiles of Khorne, obviously Skarbrand here. We've got the Ecstatic Legion of Azazel, Puppets of Misrule, Oracles of Tzeentch, Kairos Fate Weaver, and Legion of the Gore Queen Valkia. So we can already start to see more things in common here. These are obviously all chaos, mostly. Or at least majority here are Warriors of Chaos, which makes sense to me. Number one, Warhammer 3 was all about the demons, right? And obviously at the same time that Warhammer 3 came out, or not at the same time, I want to say maybe it was the same time that Immortal Empires was released, at least in beta. They did that really huge update for Warriors of Chaos. Maybe it was the same time that Warhammer 3 released. I don't honestly remember. But it was very early on in the lifespan of Warhammer 3. They introduced that Warriors of Chaos mechanics rework, which made them very, very strong. It's a good rework. They're pretty fun, but that definitely turned them into some of the most powerful factions in the game. So I'm not surprised to see these being popular, because they did get that really good rework. They are quite popular. The thing that I find interesting about it, though, is that it doesn't have the one that I thought would have been, or even the two that I thought would have been the favorites. This must be like a Warhammer theme thing that people just gravitate towards Azazel. I would not have guessed that Azazel would be the most popular of the Warriors of Chaos legendary lords. Or that Village would be the second most popular. Or that Valkyrie would be the third most popular. Again, I like all three of them, but I honestly would have expected Archaon to be number one. Maybe it's because he's been around for a long time. I don't know. Maybe it's something else. but I would have expected him to be number one, and quite frankly, I would have expected Be'lakor to be one of the more popular ones as well. He's got a very interesting mechanic as well, and again, he's thematically quite tied into the whole Warhammer 3 storyline because of what he does in the tutorial. So again, I'm a little surprised by that, but it makes sense to me that the demons and the Warriors of Chaos are up here quite high. I'm not at all surprised that Scarbrand is the most popular of any of the demonic legendary lords. So, and Kairos, it doesn't really surprise me that Kairos is the second most popular. Okay. As a follower of Nurgle, of course, I'm sort of very subjectively biased against Kairos, but he is a fun campaign. I do like him, but not really in a great place right now. I don't think he's in a really difficult starting position the way the game is right now. All right, so moving on down the list, we see a little bit more of what we've already talked about here. We got more Cathay with Zhao Ming. Festus, I love Festus, and I think Festus has an absolutely wonderful campaign. I'm surprised that he's down as low as he is amongst the list of Warriors of Chaos, but, whatever. I guess a lot of people don't really have the appreciation for disease and pestilence that I do. Fair enough. This one is a little bit astonishing to me. I would have thought that the basic community consensus that Godslayer here, the Demon Prince, I refuse to use his other name. I just hate it. It's so unthematic. So the Demon Prince here, I would have thought that the basic consensus would have distilled to enough different people that nobody would be playing this guy. I really hate that CA has neglected this campaign, because I think this campaign, to me, the Legion of Chaos here, let's talk about this for a second. The Legion of Chaos should be the signature campaign for Warhammer 3, as far as I'm concerned. They have that really nice, effective, well-done tutorial for Warhammer 3 for new players. It should be just very natural for people to want to follow from that tutorial into this campaign right here. And that's probably why it's even on this top 20 list at all. But once people have played it a little bit, or have at least heard a little bit of the community opinion of this campaign, they're going to gravitate away from it, because it's not a well-done campaign. Come on, CA. This should be your signature campaign for Warhammer 3. And it's just lacking because of just not ever really doing a fix for what's broken about the Demon Prince. All right, anyway, enough said about that, I guess. I do love Mortrow. I love Mortrow's mod, however, that reworks it. Okay, so then we've got the Ogre Kingdoms. We have to come all the way down here to 14 for that, and I mean, this is a pretty recent generation of this list, but I don't know how far back it's pulling the data. I'm too lazy to read through all of his methodology here to find out. So maybe that's why the Ogre Kingdoms are so far down the list. I would have thought with the rework that came out with Omens of Destruction that maybe they'd be more popular. I'm also a little surprised to see that it's Greasus. Well, maybe not. I guess Greasus makes sense to be the most popular of the Ogre Lords. I would have thought maybe something a little bit newer, but I imagine that this is probably tied to theme, and he's certainly the first ogre legendary lord that comes to my mind, at least when I think about the ogres. Okay, very, very. I'm glad he's on the list, but very, very sad indeed to see that not more people fully appreciate the glory that is Kugath Plaguefather. Enough said about him. Dark Elves Malekith, again, makes sense that he would be the most popular of the Dark Elves. A little surprised that the Dark Elves are so far down on this list, but I mean, there are 100 legendary lords, so that's still pretty high up the list of legendary lords overall. But I'm a little bit surprised that he's not a little bit higher. This one does surprise me a lot. We've gotten to our first Skaven here at number 17. I'm not at all surprised that which of the Skaven legendary lords is the most popular. The Skaven are they were for a long time probably my favorite race to play. They are not anymore. But I still really like them, don't get me wrong. But obviously, Claw is super powerful. He's very fun to play. I'm just not at all surprised that he's the most popular amongst the different Skaven. Not at all surprised to see Tyrion is the most popular of the High Elves. I am a little bit surprised that the High Elves, just like the Dark Elves, and just like the Skaven, I'm a little surprised that they're not higher on the list. I would have thought that Claw would be up in the top 10, honestly. I would have thought that Malekith and Tyrion would be in the top 10, but they're not. Obviously, the High Elves getting the rework coming up in Tides of Torment is going to be huge for them. I bet you they will move up the list when that comes out. Greenskins, Grimgor, Ironhide. Yeah, the Greenskins are a weird one for me. I love the Greenskins. I enjoy playing them. That wah mechanic is super strong in the early game, and it really tails off. And I don't want to say that I think the Greenskins need a rework. I won't even say that I think they need help, because they're still a very fun race to play these days. But they do have such, at least for me, let me know if you agree or disagree with this. I feel like the Greenskins have such a radically different experience as a campaign goes longer, and you guys know I like the longer campaigns. They start out super strong, and then they start tailing off fairly quickly. And you really have to do one of two things. You have to build lots and lots of crap stacks, which some people probably enjoy. I don't love crap stacks. I understand the value of them for a Greenskins campaign. I don't love it. I like having, increasingly strong armies that I just like being able to feel like I can win any battles that I get into. And I have a harder time doing that with Greenskins than with a lot of the other factions, because you naturally gravitate from the horde units, your melee infantries for the most part, up into, you have to start going into some highly niche monster units to make your armies powerful and even competitive in the mid and late games. So I don't know. It's kind of a weird experience with the Greenskins for me. Again, not disparaging them. I do really enjoy them, but I do feel like the campaign actually in many ways kind of gets less enjoyable as it goes on. And then finally, okay, I didn't even realize he was number 20 here. So we finally have gotten to Archaon. So we have 5. What is this? Almost all of the Warriors of Chaos. We don't have Be'lakor on this list at all, and we don't have what's his name? The Dragon Ogre. Kolek. We don't have Kolek Sun Eater on this list as well. And I'm not surprised that Kolek is not on the list. I like Kolek, actually, but I'm not surprised that he's not one of the more popular ones. Anyway, so yeah, as a scientific poll, I'm very curious which races you guys think are your favorites. I'm curious what you think about this list. Do you think that this, forgetting about the methodology and about the use of AI tools, I feel like this is probably a pretty accurate representation of what the player base really does like. But it's at least enough to get the conversation started. And let me know if you think it would be interesting to dive into some related things, like what really should be the best factions to get started with for new players or players not necessarily who are new but are like interested in following up on the video I made a couple of days ago about difficulty. Players who are interested in bumping up the difficulty a little bit. What are good factions to do that with? Because I've got some ideas related to that. All right. Anyway, again, want to give credit to this guy for having started this conversation, and I'd be very curious to hear what you all have to say. I'm going to do a separate video of what my favorite Legendary Lords campaigns to play are, because few of my favorites are actually on this list. Well, at least my number 1 is not on this list, and that may come as a surprise to some of you. because I've already mentioned obviously what a huge fan I am of Festus and Kugath. But my favorite campaign's not on this list. I'll leave it at that. All right. Anyway, don't want to ramble on anymore. Appreciate any feedback though that you guys have. I think it's a really interesting conversation, and I bet you guys have some pretty good ideas. So thanks everybody so much for watching and listening. I'll see you all in the next video.